Peckerhead himself, David Littleton. And I believe we have Jeff Riddle on, who is jumping back on, and he played Max, and he'll be on in 1 second here. But thank you for joining us on Where the Scary Things Are. Very excited to talk Uncle Peckerhead. We all watched it. We all loved it very, very much. Filmed in our backyard, Asbury Park. I have seen so many shows at Independence Hall. I have had very sad moments at the end of those shows trying to find my car or find a, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, very cool venue. And I got to ask, just to kick off the show, what was the name of the diner that they were eating at? That's in Asbury too, right?
No, it's such a weird name for a diner. That's a diner in Tom's River. It's right near my mom's house. And we did it just because we needed them to, because again, you're shooting out of order and we would need them to wash off all the filth in order to shoot the diner scene. So it's actually called JB Cousins Diner. So it's the cousin of JB, his diner. And it's just a strip mall diner in Tom's River on Route 70. So it is a lovely diner, but it is a strip mall diner in Tom's River. JB's Cousins Diner.
Y'all should check out my cousin's diner, dude.
Jeff, welcome to the show. Is that a scotch you're drinking there? What is that?
Yeah, that's some Japanese whiskey.
There you go, my friend. There you go. All right. Well, I'm the beer drinker of the show, and I introduce a new beer every show. And tonight I'm drinking a Cali Creamin' Vanilla Cream Ale. Very, very good from San Diego. They sent this to me. It's really cool stuff.
Hell
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's
Seriously, holding an invisible beverage.
Let's see if I can. There we
There
go.
we go. Nice.
So we'll start with Matthew, and we'll go through. And the way we work it out is I'll jump back and forth here with each of my co-hosts here. But Matthew, like I said, love the film. Thank you so much for doing something that was not CGI and fake. And I mean, it's fake, but I love this. It was perfect amount of gore. I fell in love with Chet's character, Judy, right away. Perfect casting, man. You nailed it. Jeff, your role was great as well. And I forgot the redhead's name there, but
Ruby.
Mel, the trio there just really awesome. And then you run into Uncle Peckerhead, Peck, David's character, and you definitely steal the show too. But the chemistry that you and Judy have was really cool because she wasn't too sure about you in the beginning.
No, I had to win her over.
Yeah, it's probably that accent of yours. Matthew, how did you start? Let's talk about the fruition of the show. Where did it come from, the ideas, and what obstacles did you go through just to get this thing into production?
Totally. So like the initial idea, it was a bunch of, separate ideas that kind of came together just because, I'll just start off. I'd wanted to pitch an Adult Swim series, and the Adult Swim series really didn't have any of the horror elements. I wanted to do kind of like a 90s style sitcom about a bunch of punk kids living in a dilapidated row house that had this wise, sage-like elder in the house. And inexplicably, there was just this, like older or middle-aged hillbilly there that would just give them advice at the end of every episode that would solve the conflict. So I always pitched it as kind of like a punk rock Full House meets a redneck Mr. Belvedere. And I had been producing a bunch of horror shorts, and I had been taking them to film festivals, and I had really not seen a film. I think about the first time I saw certain films in a theater, right? Whether you're talking about when I was really young, like a movie like Beetlejuice, but even like, seeing kind of the touring Evil Dead or Evil Dead 2, or, these films that are just kind of batshit audience movies that you can kind of go with your friends, you drink a couple of beers and you just kind of like shout at the screen and you see everyone's kind of together in this dark room. I didn't see them at any festivals that I had gone to. I had not seen a film in quite some time. And I just really wanted to kind of also, I had been writing a script about a band on tour. And I wanted to kind of like showcase these experiences I had had and a lot of my friends that had played in bands like Jeff and a bunch of our other friends. So it really was this kind of perfect storm that I had gone to this one festival where it had a particularly bad, a bad selection of feature films that were really kind of humorless, weren't fun, were kind of like dour, self-serious. And I was like, I really want to make kind of like the type of movie when I first saw like Evil Dead 2, or when I first rented a movie or went to the movies and saw, those really fun kind of batshit crazy movies. So I basically kind of combined all these ideas together, and that was Uncle Peckerhead. And the only thing I'd say is, like, casting was relatively easy with Jeff, because I had known Jeff for a decade. We were really good friends, and I loved his music. And he was like the first person I thought of when it came to kind of like involving him, because he's one of the funniest people I know, but he's also one of the most talented musicians. We did a casting call for Judy and Mel. And I had heard of Chet, and I had heard of Ruby, and I knew they were great comedic actors or actresses. But it really was, the toughest one was finding Peck, because we did, for a micro budget film, our film was really DIY, shoestring budget. But Peck was like that role that it all hinges on. It could be really cringy, really hack, really silly, really goofy. But we had seen really like upwards of probably 100 Pecks. No one even came close. And David sent a video in, thankfully, a couple of days after we had really kind of like been worrying about, should we make the movie, should we not? Like, we can't go forward if we don't have a Peck. And David sent the diner scene, and he basically did the same exact thing you saw in the actual movie. He did via like an iPhone recording, sent it to us, and it was like an uninterrupted 5-minute tour de force performance. And we were like, we need to get this guy, we need to get him up here. So David really just like was kind of the saving grace that really helped to propel us into our really serious pre-production. That was like a novel. I'm so sorry.
No, it's great.
Everyone's asleep right now.
One thing that we like to do is you guys work so hard on the movies. We just like to let it out, man. And it's definitely worth talking about, especially from your perspective, because all we get is, the hour and a half of the film. So everything that goes into making it is always interesting. That's why we do the show, because we definitely value talking to not just the actors, but the directors, the editors, the producers. So I'm going to move it on over to Jeff real quick. Jeff, I understand that you also wrote the music as well as playing Max. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And you're a musician. Are you actor first, musician first? But what would you classify yourself as?
Magician.
Yeah, because I felt like one of the questions I wanted to ask was, when you and Judy were up there, all three of you were up there, and you guys were rocking out, like, it really felt natural. Like, you guys, I was watching like a live punk show. So I didn't know if that was like either you're acting really well, or you just, that guy is a fucking rock star right there. So well done, man. You blew it out with the water there.
Thank you. I said magician.
Oh, magician. Oh,
I heard that.
I'm a rocker.
Well, you used your magic powers on me right there, my friend. No, it must have cut out on my end. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you being serious?
I'm not the drummer from the Pixies, but
Oh.
So no, that's a great compliment. Thank you. But I play music first, I guess, and like Matt said, that's how he brought me into this. And we did a short together a few years prior called Larry Gone Demon that he asked me to do too. But yeah, no, it was cool, and it was something different. I've never, written with like a kind of direction, so to speak. As far as like, Matt sending me the script and us talking, about things together, like, this is what's happening in the scene, trying to like, write. I didn't try to write the songs a certain way, but like, when you know what's happening in a scene, you're kind of like imagining the tone of, what music is going to be playing there and all that.
Right on. And I see you're a nice collection of guitars right behind you. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, the props.
So is horror a genre you'd like to do more movies of? Are you a fan of horror?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd be down to just kind of do anything, really. This is kind of a new thing for me, but I kind of fell in love with it when we did the short, and then I kind of had more of like an hands-on approach to working on this movie, as you know, as far as like on set doing stuff and pre-production and all that. And you know, like the house was my house.
Oh, okay.
So it doesn't look like that anymore, but it did when we shot there. The van's mine. I drove us all around. The gear's mine. So, you know, that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't know. It really kind of like opened up a whole new world to me. And I really kind of got bit with the bug of like really loving this and wanting to do this more. So I even went as far as to like move 1,000 miles away and like start working on actual TV and film to like get a better grasp of it and just kind of be better when we do stuff from here on out.
Well, your role was great, and I think what helped you is Uncle Peckerhead himself, is David, just really knocking it out of the park. David, how did you feel about when you read the script for this movie and that what you would be playing?
Well, I at first I just got a snippet of it. You know, I sent in, I think, a photo and resume, and then I got invited to submit with the sides, and that diner scene is so much fun that yeah, I was definitely excited about it. And I personally am a huge horror nerd. Like,
I'm gonna give you later on. We'll see how much of a nerd you are. We'll get to that later on.
All right.
But
anyway,
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, but when I had been doing a play down in New York, and then that wrapped up, and it just timed out perfectly in time for a chemistry read with the rest of the cast, and we did the diner scene again, and they offered me the part and sent the whole script, and yeah, I loved it. I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was fun. I was a little nervous about the one scene. I don't want to give. Are we?
You can
spoiler
say
free, or
you can say the Dookie scene. The Dookie scene.
Yeah, the infamous the infamous Dookie scene. I kept joking with Matt that if I die and I have a body of work left behind, like that's the scene they'll show on CNN. You know, like David Littleton passes away, and it'll just show me spraying people with explosive diarrhea. So but I talked with Matt about it, and he, Matt's so enthusiastic and smart, and I looked at his previous work, and I just trusted him. So yeah, I was 100% invested when we started.
I should say, like, there was a lot of fear on my end too, because David's the real deal. I mean, like, he's an actor, not in the pretentious way, but he's like his I mean, you saw in the movie, his shit's great. And I had never really worked with somebody as kind of professional and as like serious in terms of his acting as David. And especially I mean in reality, I'd never really worked with anyone beyond my friends. So when I was talking with David, I was really worried, because you want somebody to trust you, and you also you don't want, you really kind of want to feel like that you're not going to disappoint this person. But David is really like one of the most giving people in terms of collaboration. So like that was one of the best things with all the actors, is they really kind of embraced their role, and they also were like really giving, not just to each other as actors, but with the rest of the crew. Since we were such a DIY operation, I mean, like David would be one of the first people, if it's raining outside and we're shooting, to like grab a light and make sure our equipment didn't get ruined or fucked up or whatever. And that goes a long way, especially on a shoestring budget, when you're relying on kind of everyone, wearing 12 hats rather than just one.
Well, then, his character as Uncle Peckerhead translated to who he is as a person, because he's literally killing for his friends. So speaking of people that I'd kill for, I'm going to pass it on over to Muse and let her ask her questions.
All right. Hey, everybody. Yeah, I'm just going to do kind of like a round table type of situation here. Just if you guys want to chime in, if the question, kind of sounds like something you want to answer, just kind of have a little bit of questions for everybody. I'm going to start with Matt, and I'm going to ask you, what were some of the most challenging scenes to film during Uncle Peckerhead?
Totally. Definitely there's a rival band. And we have a particularly gruesome way in which they meet their demise. And that was shot in my now sister-in-law's, but at the time my girlfriend's sister's apartment in Brooklyn, which is above other people. So like just with the shrieking, the shouting, and also like we didn't really think about how that is going to get cleaned up when we have other days to shoot. So like basically somebody who will remain nameless forgot to call a cleaning crew. And obviously trying to find a cleaning crew on a Saturday night is going to be impossible in Brooklyn, New York. So in reality, that night into our only day off Sunday, so all day, all night Saturday night into Sunday, our day off, Jeff, myself, and Ryan, our UPM, who also played Shiloh, the head of the rival band, we cleaned blood off of walls in 2 rooms in that apartment. And basically it was still completely destroyed. So like after the filming was done, I had to repaint it, kind of like just redo the walls in the apartment. But that was just something where like we didn't plan for it, and where I should have been planning during like a Sunday, I was like, we were literally in our underwear just scrubbing shit and blood off of walls. I mean, and in general, like with micro budget filmmaking, it's really like this thing, you're just stretched super thin. Every inch you're given, you take a mile. People are angry at you. You know, the crew is really kind of like at their limit, or the cast and crew at their limit. So that's one huge thing, but just in general, every day you're putting out like dozens of fires, and it really speaks to just kind of the cast and crew that we were able to get it in, and everyone still talks to each other, right? Like we're all still friends. Like no one really kind of, nobody died literally or figuratively during the filming. So that was like just the challenges of DIY filmmaking and just not planning for stuff you probably should have planned for.
Yeah, so that kind of led me, well, you said nobody died. That kind of led me into my next question. Were there any injuries or anything like that on the set? Hopefully not. I'm hoping.
Yeah.
Jeff.
Jeff.
Yeah, I broke my toe on the second day of filming, and I didn't tell anybody about it.
You're a warrior. I love it. That's like some Aragorn level stuff there. You know, like Lord of the Rings. I just went geek for a second, but I had to say it.
Dude, yeah. Thank you. It was the first scene where our first performance scene where we're in like the lodge thing. That was the first performance that we shot. It was on day 2. And, we're getting into it, and I just came down on my foot wrong, and instantly I was like, this is definitely broken. And then, I went outside, like, we were changing setups, and I took my sock off, and I was like, oh, this thing's fucking gross. But I knew like Matt, the crew, I knew the people would be like, okay, we're going to make you go to the doctor, and and we're already stretched thin, and I just didn't want to slow anything down. So I just didn't say anything until literally like at wrap at like 5 o'clock in the morning, like 3 weeks later, I was just like, hey, Matt, I got to show you something. And he was like, thanks.
Oh, wow. That is insane. So, I mean, that's definitely a major, probably something you'd like to forget from the film. So I want to ask you what your favorite memory was, Jeff, while filming Uncle Peckerhead, something that you're just always going to look back and just always smile about.
I have a lot of them, but I also have a lot of trauma. So I try to black out. I'm just kidding. No, I don't know. Favorite memory from the film. That's all. I might have to think about that for a second. They're really, I don't know if there's like one moment that sticks out. It was just sort of like one crazy summer. It was like one ball of fury. Matt, do you have anything to add, or David?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have one just because I know you brought it up in a previous interview, Jeff, which I had forgotten about, is like one of, and again, this is just the thing of like not to keep hammering the same point home, is that, you know, we had a very small crew. And for example, when we shot the diner scene, we obviously went over the amount of time we were supposed to shoot in the diner. And the owner was really nice and gracious, but he was like, you guys got to get the fuck out right now. And as we were like loading out, we realized we needed an establishing shot. We needed to just see the diner. We forgot to grab that shot. And they had this really nice kind of like neon light. But we had basically unpacked our entire set, like just on the sidewalk. So we couldn't get that shot. And the guy's like, I'm turning off all the lights. Get the fuck out of my diner. Right. But we were like, we need to grab the shot. And I'm talking with the cinematographers really quick. Like, can you get it on sticks? Can we get it wide enough? Can we do this? You know? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, the guy's like, I'm literally turning off this neon light, all the lights in like a minute. So basically everyone on set, actors, any crew members, like wardrobe, production design, anybody who didn't have something to do was grabbing our equipment and racing it out of the shot. And within it, like I'm telling you, in 45 seconds, the amount of lights and just equipment and shit we had, grip stuff, everything got moved in 45. I'd never seen a film set work so quickly. And it was
set the shot up, you know.
Yeah, and we set the shot up, and it was like one of those things that, like, you know, like honestly, like I was like kind of crying, like inside, and I definitely cried that night, just being so moved that these are not everyone's my best friend. Like you expect your best friends to do that. That people are so committed to the movie and so committed to the vision. And just so they care about each other and they want everything. They want to get every shot that you want to get. As the director, the producer, the whatever, it was just seeing like you're carrying stuff and you're watching like a dozen other people wildly moving. That was like one of the most, it motivated me for like the next 2 weeks, that like I can never complain. I can never like piss and moan, because like from the you know, from the PA on the lowest rung of the ladder to like, you know, the producers that I'm producing this with, everyone's working together. Everyone's kind of on the same wavelength.
You know, honestly, you know, when we do the show here, when everybody's on the same page and on the same wavelength, it just flows beautifully. Definitely. So I definitely totally understand that and feel that. I'm going to swing around to David really quick, and I'm going to ask David, what was your, we talked a bit to Matt there, and talked to Jeff about, you know, his broken toe and whatnot, about, you know, some of the difficulties he faced as well. What were some of your biggest challenges while working on Uncle Peckerhead?
I mean, I have to say, I know Matt has talked about how stretched we were in terms of resources of time, etc. But that actually, in some ways, worked in our favor, because you didn't have a lot of downtime, and you didn't have time to get distracted or whatever. I was always like a little concerned about the accent, about maintaining that and the integrity of it, and that it, because you know, you talk a certain way at 2 p.m., you know, and then maybe you have a bunch of shots where you're not even talking, or you're a monster, and so you're just growling or whatever, and then you got to pick back up and just find that cadence again, exactly, you know, that rhythm and the sound of it and all of that. So maybe that was a challenge. The prosthetics were a little bit of a challenge. Jared did a great job in this. The contacts weren't too bad. It was the first time I wore contacts, but they really weren't too bad. Getting them in was tough. But the hardest thing about the look of the monster was the nails, because, you know, we'd get them all glued on and they were, you know, ready to go, and then you get sprayed with blood and they're just sliding off. I mean, they were literally flying off when we were shooting certain scenes. So there was a lot of nail work, a lot of monster manicure time.
Yeah, and on those big budget productions, you would have like, you know, like 30 sets of nails. We literally probably had 2 sets. So it would be like 20 minutes trying to find fucking nails in like a dead carcass or like a dead body. Yeah, I mean, if this was a more professional operation, we would definitely be able to supply David with a new round of nails each time. It would be like the effects guys, myself, David, Jeff, like all kind of like rummaging through like dead bodies trying to find the fucking nail.
That'd been me. I would have been like, yeah, we're finding the nails. You know how much those cost me? we're gonna find every one of them. Okay, so we're speaking about the makeup, David. How long were you in makeup? Was it like hours? How long did that all take?
It started out as hours. Like we did all the gore stuff, all the monster stuff at the last week, and so at the beginning of that week, like the first time, it was probably 2 hours. But then each day it got probably down to an hour and a half, I would say. Yeah, not terrible.
Yeah, it came out fantastic. I loved it. The transformation. I was like, yes, it was just amazing. I loved the gore. I love the fact that Ken mentioned it earlier that you didn't go with the CGI route. You went the practical effects route. I love that. I'm a huge fan of that. I'm gonna swing back to Jeff really quick, and he's the musician here in the group. I'm gonna ask him, who are your favorite bands? I gotta know.
That's like ever changing.
I can understand that.
Right now I like, Mannequin Pussy from Philadelphia is great. Gladdy, Augusta, I got to give her a shout out because my friend Augusta, long time, she's like my sister. She did the singing voice for Judy, and she was in a band called Kaitana and is now in a band called Gladdy, and they rule. So check them out. Yeah, the Dirty No, love that band. Some Canadian gentleman. I don't know. It's always kind of changing, but yeah, I don't know.
All right, I could talk to you guys all night. I have like a million questions, but I'm gonna hand it over to Chris so he can give you guys his questions. It was great talking to you guys, and I love the movie.
Cheers.
Thank you so much.
Cheers, guys.
Hey, I really, really enjoyed the movie. I love a good monster movie. And David, we talked a little bit before we went live, and I was thrilled because Ken matches us up with these guests, and they're beautiful ladies, and they always start off with, I'm not a horror fan. I don't like horror. When I found out that you liked horror, it's like, it's about time we actually got somebody who likes horror on this show. Yeah. And when I was watching Your Monster, a couple thoughts came to my mind. One is Talbot turning into the werewolf, because just the carnal brutality of the kills. And then I also thought about Frankenstein, because we talked a little bit about this. Not necessarily evil. An outcast, wants to be accepted, wants to be liked, and when isn't liked, How did you see the monster? Did that come to mind for you?
Well, I wasn't really comparing it to things in other movies that I've seen, because it is so kind of unusual. Like sometimes people call it a demon or a ghoul or a zombie, and I don't really think it's any of those things. I think the closest thing would be almost like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, where he's a good guy, he means well, he just has this issue, just has a little bit of an issue. So I think that's the closest kind of thing I can compare it to.
I loved how the torment that you inflict, not only on your victims, but initially the band members, seemed to be so intense when Judy became jealous that you could bake scones and her macaroons were not even fit for dogs. I just thought that was a brilliant little piece of how you torment the innocent. And yeah.
He's doing his best to like get in with the rest of the group. He knows that he's probably never really going to win Judy over, even though he keeps trying. But he's in some ways he's definitely working against her to ingratiate himself with the band.
Yeah, I think he walks over immediately, just like in real life.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I looked at the character and I look at David. I said, "There's a guy I could have a beer with every Wednesday and just yap with."
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I might get my innards pulled out, but small price to pay.
Nothing's perfect.
No, that's right. That's right. And the characters, Max, Mel, and Judy. Matthew, you did a fantastic job with them because you've got Judy, who's got to put in quite an effort to motivate them. Uh, she's the hard charger, and Max and Mel they need to be cheered up. They need to be in the right mood. And initially, it seems as though Max has got a bit of a public speaking problem or problem when he's actually not singing with an audience. And he sort of comes full circle. And we wonder, is that Judy or is that Peck? And I'm thinking it's Peck. And I love how you brought these characters full circle. And Mel does the same thing. She sort of becomes, she has the appearance of an underachiever, and now she's making decisions, and now she's standing up to Judy, especially when it comes to Peck. And you brought these guys or gals, guys and gals, sort of full circle. Yeah. Yeah, so good job on that. And I guess that wasn't really a question.
No, I always saw the three as kind of like a fucked up kind of nuclear family where Judy is the mom, and then you have kind of like the angsty teen in Mel, or the in this case an angsty daughter. And then kind of like the precocious, curious, like innocent, like young son in Max. But also, Judy is kind of like, is kind of a distillation of me. When I was in bands, I was always kind of like the overachieving. I would always push probably a little too hard on my other bandmates who were, whether you want to call them underachievers or just weren't as motivated as I was. But like a lot of those things, a lot of the lines that Judy says, both in her interactions with the band, but also just when she reveals kind of herself to Peck on the balcony of that motel. That's stuff that I felt both in the music that I worked on with other people, but also or the bands I was in, but also in filmmaking. Is just like, you're so desperate to want something and you push so hard, and you kind of again, like I mentioned before, whenever you're given an inch, you take a mile. Is that I even though Judy is sometimes seen as kind of this type A, some people have defined her as type A or annoying. Honestly, I never considered her, I never wrote her to be that, because I kind of always saw her as a version of myself, and she's literally said things that I have said, in my real life. But yeah, it's kind of like a messed up little family that they have, and Peckerhead is kind of the fun uncle that shows up and has a couple of drinks in him, and is maybe playing a little too hard, is has a little too much rough play, or gives them a sip of his beer, when they're a little too young. But that's how I always saw it, is it's just kind of this really kind of oddball family that they all need each other, but they all kind of assume the role and almost kind of revel in it to a certain point.
I can't believe this hasn't come up yet, either Muse or Ken, and I'm sure Omar was about to bring it up. But David and Jeff, I just love the scene the first night in the hotel. You're having a conversation. What's it like to eat a person? What do they taste like? And I expected you to say it tastes like chicken. Was this ad lib, or did somebody write watermelon sherbet or dog shit?
I want to try watermelon sherbet, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, you guys did that so well. I was like, they got to ad lib this. Nobody writes that, but that's just beautiful.
No, Matt does.
Everything
that came out of my mouth was scripted. Wow. I can't think of anything that I said on my own, except for that the scene before the scones where we're talking about potato chips for some reason.
Yeah.
But otherwise, everything was written.
Yeah. That speaks to, I think the film definitely, I agree, has a very kind of impromptu, on the fly kind of, it feels like this on the fly type of dialogue where there's a lot of I can't think of the word right now, but like, a lot of like vamping on set. But that really speaks to the actors. I think like the actors really they were so natural in their performance, that they really kind of like made it seem like the words, which is the whole point of like, as a director, what you want is you don't want it to seem like people are reading off of a page, right? But that's really, I mean, that it just speaks to like, especially the main cast, but all of even the supporting cast, is they own their character, and it seemed like it was such kind of a natural extension of what they were doing in that scene and in that moment.
Well done. I enjoyed it. I hope you guys get a chance to hear my review earlier in the show, but a very praiseful review. Well done. Great monster movie. And I'm going to turn it over to my friend Haru.
Thank you.
How you guys doing tonight? And congrats on the movie.
Thank you so much.
Obviously loved it like everybody else here. And I guess I'll start with you, Matthew. I have to know, the names in this movie obviously are very dominant here. Obviously, starting with Peckerhead, and then the name of the group Duh. Why make these names the way you ended up turning them out? And there's some other funny names along the lines in the movie as well.
Yeah, I mean, like, Duh's probably the easiest to explain. Is I didn't want, because I knew Duh would be uttered like dozens of times in the script, is I wanted a one syllable, very easy word that could just kind of like roll off the tongue and like didn't really kind of like stop or impede the dialogue in any given moment when it was said. So Duh just kind of lent naturally to that thing. Peckerhead's a little different in that, there's a couple of things at play. One is that I definitely wanted a title of the film to be grabbing. And then, I've quickly learned that sometimes that people don't want to watch something if Peckerhead is in the title. But beyond that, like just a quick thing, like the reason even why we called it Uncle Peckerhead is like, and again, just like politics aside, is one of the things that I had been reading around the time I was writing the script is, Trump, it was a year into his being elected. And a lot of people were saying, listen, Trump was elected because of the working class white male felt that they were left behind. And they decided that they were willing to burn it all down because they felt that the world had left them behind. And I thought that was like such an interesting idea. It was kind of fucked up to hear, but it was an interesting thing. And I thought that like, with the script, that's really kind of what's going on, is this idea of kind of like your uncle, right? This working class white male, is willing to if he feels that the world has left him behind, he's willing to burn it all down, right? He doesn't care about these young kids that have these dreams, these hopes that like that they had those same things before he entered the picture. So that's why, like, in terms of Peckerhead, it's like it's a term that's used by that demographic, I'd say. But beyond that, the reason why I called it Uncle Peckerhead is he's kind of this uncle figure, but he is that uncle at the Thanksgiving dinner table that you're just like, fuck, I don't want to talk about anything. I don't want to hear the Fox News, the counterpoints or whatever. But that's really where Peckerhead came from.
Awesome. Okay, I was just very, very curious about that. I kind of guessed that some of it was a little bit about marketing, but I figured there was a little bit more behind that. And I guess another curious question that I had is, and I guess David kind of talked about it earlier, is how he played his character kind of as a monster and so forth. But since you wrote the character, what did you exactly envision for him? Is he a monster? Is he a demon? Is it just for the audience to take a guess at?
Yeah, I mean, in the script, I think that's a great question. In some of the synopses of the film, which, they call him a demon, I don't think he's a demon. I'm more in the David camp and how he reflects that it's more of kind of a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, or like a 13-minute, not a werewolf, but a 13-minute monster type of situation. I like for all of the main cast, I gave them kind of like a 3 or 4 page biography of, where they are coming into this film. And with David, I explained like his backstory, and I explained like how, like, not exactly, it's just his knowledge of how he got to be where he is. But I never saw him as a demon. I didn't imagine any of that stuff because I think that really kind of complicates things. I really wanted to keep it sounds, I always hate when filmmakers say I wanted to keep it ambiguous. I didn't want to explain too much. I just felt with too much backstory, it would really slow down the action. So I always saw it like David saw it. I always thought it as a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde situation, like a 13-minute not a werewolf, but a 13-minute monster where he turns during this certain period of time or in this certain moment. And there's like an exact science to it. After 13 minutes, he's done. But no, I mean, I think it's because that's in a lot of our synopses, which I didn't approve. Yeah, I mean, no demon, no like, I mean, you could call it a ghoul or a monster. I'm not super into categorizing, but I definitely think it's like a very set, very simple science to follow, not science, but simple kind of like backstory to follow in, you know, how he turns and why he turns.
And I think it's important to note that Peckerhead prefers to be called a thing. So maybe we should just leave it there.
Absolutely.
He's a thing.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I mean, and that was like, you know, part of the thing we talked about, like as I was developing the script, and then with David, is that like, I mean, that is the preferred, is just calling him a thing, because, you know, we wanted to kind of establish this isn't kind of like this isn't dictated by like previous films or previous like lore of whatever you want to call it. It's kind of just operating on its own, hopefully. But you can kind of like attribute it to certain aspects or certain elements that you see in other monster movies.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you kind of mentioned that, because when I did my review, and I always include the synopsis, and I usually get it from IMDb, it said demon, and that kind of really threw me off because I never saw him as a demon. Maybe he had elements of, but that really threw me off, and I think I mentioned it once and then kind of change it in the review and say monster, because that just seemed to fit, but obviously Thing does it as well. So I'm glad you kind of cleared that up a little bit.
Yeah, and I would never fault anyone, because I know what the synopsis like you're just going off of. But yeah, I mean, that is something that just like was beyond my control. But thank you so much for allowing us to talk to that.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm definitely glad, and for everybody listening, that you can clear that up. So with that, I'll jump to you. Have you ever played a character like this where you were a monster or demon or thing or whatever you want to call it before? Or is this your first experience doing something like that?
Well, I did an earlier movie where I played a hillbilly cannibal civil rights attorney. And then before that, I did a hillbilly cannibal brain surgeon. No, this is the first time I've done anything like this. This is only like my fourth feature, and like the feature that I did before this one, literally the name of my character was Random Guy. So yeah, my background's mostly theater. Like I've done a lot of Shakespeare. I've done we did Shakespeare in the Park in New York. I was doing a play down in Florida about a coal miner before I came back up to New York to shoot this. So yeah, this is, it's weird that it is my first horror movie because I am such a fan. But yeah, no, nothing remotely like this.
Well, you know, I would take random character or random person. I mean, anything. But
yeah.
I guess to follow that up, you kind of get thrown right into the horror, obviously, since you're the monster here. So you talked about some of the challenges, but how fun was it to be the monster and be the one doing all the killing and so forth? Because that's something a lot of horror fans would love to be in a kind of role like.
Dude, it was a blast. I mean, it was fantastic. The very first time Matt mentioned that apartment, his sister-in-law's apartment. I mean, it was a fairly small Brooklyn apartment. So everybody's kind of like crowded together. And I'm off in one corner getting the makeup done. And when it's all done and people saw me for the first time, like they literally would back up. They like, it freaked them out, you know? And yeah, it's there's a little bit of power in that. So yeah, it was a blast. It was really fun.
A quick interjection right there with David, to add to David's point. Chet actually requested that first scene where she walks in and discovers him. She requested, she's like, let me be away. Like, I don't want to see him. And I don't think she saw him until they called action. And that reaction that I believe Matt uses to take, that was her like real She was like, I don't want to see him. Like, I want to get into the whatever. And she walked in, and that was it. That was like, she was like, oh fuck.
Yeah, the actual shot of her screaming when she discovers him in the promoter's office, the take we use where she's actually screaming is the first time she saw David in makeup. That was the first time that David was in makeup, and that was the first time she saw him in makeup was when she enters into that office. And that take we use where she screams, like she is legitimately like very. I mean, Chet's amazing because she really feels it. Is that like even like when she's gagging, seeing kind of the promoter and that other. I mean, they're all gagging. They're literally throwing up. That's not really Jeff's puke, but everyone is really gagging and kind of dry heaving.
I don't really know that.
Yeah,
a little bit of it.
Well, that's always interesting to know because I've heard that be done on other slasher sets where they kind of hide the bad guy and bring him out for the first time to try to get the natural reaction. So that's another good behind the scenes thing to know here. And with that, I'm going to jump to you, Jeff, and welcome you to the horror community here. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you get sprayed with blood in one scene. So what was that experience like?
That was great. I think that was the last scene for me and Ruby. But yeah, that was. I mean, honestly, I can see how some people wouldn't like it, but for like weird fucks like me, like it was cool. Like I was like, the challenge was, it's like, try not to close your eyes, and we're gonna fucking spray like gallons of blood in them. And I remember. And I like watched. I'm like, I think I did close my eyes, but I tried. I remember being like, "Whoa!" But that was fun. It was great. And like about another thing about a lot of those scenes, I'm sure Matt and David can speak more on this too. But since we did have such a small budget and it is practical effects, you don't have a lot of takes. So, and that speaks to David's acting and why he's such an all around all-star, but he would regularly nail shit in one take, and a lot of times we had his coverage last, and it would always be like a crunch, and he would just nail it. But in those things where we're doing practical effects, it's like you have like maybe 2 takes max. So like, I guess we don't give a fuck about spoilers anymore.
No. I mean, I wouldn't give the big spoiler.
Like in a big gore scene, we'll say, right? It's like that's one take, and sometimes it's like, oh fuck, we fucked the camera up from that. Like, I mean, but that has to be an enormous amount of pressure, which David did well under, and also how fucking cool is that? I mean, you're asking him how it was. I was watching David do it, and I was like, oh fuck, you get to like do this cool thing, like you get to dismember this whatever. So yeah. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
No, I mean, like again, I think it's just like both with the actors, but also like our camera crew and our, like wardrobe people. Everyone's really on point because, like Jeff said, like you get 2 max, but especially if you're doing one of the big stuff we have, like a face rip or something like that. I mean, you have 1 face, right? So, I mean, it really is like the camera department have to be on point in terms of the position that they take, like making sure if there's any move involved that they hit their points, that the actors hit their marks, right, for focus, all that stuff. And luckily, like everything we had in the script made it into the film. And that really just speaks to, everyone just kind of knowing what they have to do and basically nailing it in the moment that they do. Because, when you're doing that 1 take and there's 1 take, everyone's butthole is like puckered and just like, if we don't get this, that's like, that's our big sequence. That's like whether you want to call it the climax of the film or one of the big kind of like money shots in our movie. There's only so many, moments you have to kind of like really kind of like generate that audience kind of like, what? So yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like our crew and the cast were just absolutely killed it.
I have one more quick thing I'd like to say because I've thought about it and forgotten it 3 times. So, but when you were kind of speaking on ad-libbing and that kind of shit, one of the things that I thought was really fun and cool that you can't really plan for a movie like this, and when you're talking about the hotel toilet, me and David scene, I mean, you really couldn't plan. We scouted things to a certain degree at some point, but basically in that shitty little hotel, we rented 2 rooms next to each other. And, you know, you go in and see the room for the first time when you shoot there. So we saw that bathroom. I mean, that scene was written, but the fact that the sink and the toilet are literally like one and the
Top
same.
of each other. Yeah.
We were like, this is, you know, so your brain starts going in the moment, and it's like, okay, we're supposed to be in the bathroom together. And it's like, what if I like pull my pants all the way down? Oh, don't worry about that. I'm just making my own low budget horror film at home.
It's all good, man. It's all good.
That just lends itself to whatever. That worked out perfectly. And it's like, okay, cool. And then another thing, I don't think we've ever even talked about this, even in an interview or anything, but don't get scared, Matt. I'm not going to throw you under the bus. But like when we're staying at the girls' house where the 2 bands have the, you know, stare off. I mean, that was I don't know if I should say this, but we didn't have that location till like then. That was one of the
No, we never had that location. The location was never got. So that was actually an Airbnb we were renting to sleep a crew in. Yeah. So like,
yeah,
just like, I mean,
Airbnb. Yeah.
I mean, just in general, it's just like a ton of happy accidents. And then just like a lot of the stuff is just like, you know, I mean, for example, like I have an uncle that worked for the township, and it's like whenever we couldn't get something, I would just like call him up and be like, do you have something that looks like a car wash, you know, or like whatever. And like, he'd be like, okay, show up at 3 p.m. And this is like the day of, you're like shooting a scene while you're on the phone with your uncle, who's just like, stop bothering me. Like, this is this is my career, you fucking little shit. But yeah, I mean, like, you're just kind of, you luck out that like people can like, you have friends and family that can help you in a bind, and that like what they can give you or what you end up discovering ends up lending itself to, you know, making the movie that you hope to make.
Awesome. That's fantastic insight on behind the scenes from all 3 of you. And I'd just like to congratulate you one more time. And thank you for all the awesome insight. And I'm going to throw it back to Ken.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Great questions.
As I was saying earlier, it's really cool to get, you know, when we speak to different directors and actors, writers and whatnot, to get the behind the scenes. And I think, and something I always tell our guests is when we do we're really focused on the indie films, and when people put their own money, you know, and invest in themselves, and you're such a tight budget, I think the reward is so much more at the end of the day rather than these big production films and whatnot. So well done, Matt. But, you know, I didn't necessarily get scared in this movie because I enjoyed it more than anything, and I was laughing. But we like to get back at our guest, and we do this thing called the Deathly 13. So we got 13 trivia questions, random horror questions. I don't know what they are. Yeah, there you go, Dave. I don't know what they are. Chris doesn't know what they are, and random guy Horo does not know what they are. So Muse knows what they are. She's going to ask them, right? And you can have 3 lifelines with us. You can ask Chris, myself, or Horo if you guys don't know between the 3 of you, which is great, which would be crazy. Or you can postpone the question. Maybe you kind of think about it or whatever. Maybe one of you guys wants to secretly Google it as we watch you on the screen. You can ask for multiple choice or true or false. Okay, so it's like six lifelines you get there. So you got to get. We've had people go 14 for 30. It's a bonus question at the end. So we'll see how well you do. I'm going to hand it over to Muse, and good luck, guys.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Are you guys? So this is going to be kind of like a team effort. So
Yeah.
I guess you know, just go ahead and shout out whoever's got the answer first, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, one of those types of deals. We also have, I think we have a few people in our chat there on YouTube to give clues if you guys get stuck. I think you guys are going to be good. I think David said he's a horror nerd, so I am as well. So I think you guys are going to be good. But just in case, there's kind of, I guess you could say, a 4th lifeline. I told John to give clues. don't shout out the answer. So because he didn't want to ruin it for anybody. So he's always there in the chat. So I'm going to start off with the first question. I'm going to throw you guys a little bit of a curveball in the beginning here. And I'm going to ask something that's not necessarily horror related, but it has kind of like horrific elements to it. So we all know horror can show up in unexpected places. And there's a particular movie that I'm going to ask you about, and how I'm going to phrase it is horror can show up in unexpected places, like when Judge Doom finally gets his comeuppance in this 1988 comedy.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Yes, very good. All right. I was going to say animation, but I was going to let you guys.
That would have given it away, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to give it away too bad. Okay.
He was scary. It was Christopher. What was his
Lloyd.
name?
It's a scary scene, yeah.
Yes. All right. So the next question is a true or false. And we all know that John Carpenter, the legendary John Carpenter, directed Halloween from 1978. But true or false, John Carpenter also composed the film's unforgettable score. Is that true or false?
True.
True.
It is true. He also composed the score, indeed. I thought that was pretty fascinating. All right. Question 3. 2 years before playing Prince Humperdinck in The Princess Bride from 1987, Chris Sarandon played a vampire named Jerry Dandridge in what film?
Bright Night.
Yes. All right. All right. Yeah, you guys are jamming. Question 4. What is the address of Nancy's house in A Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984?
Is it 1428 Elm Street?
Yes. All right. You guys hope
Matt.
I was like, I wonder if they're going to get
Yes.
this. Love it. All right. You guys are jamming. All right.
Question 5.
Question 5. I'm going to give you throw a little bit of a curveball in here and ask you a non-horror related question, but again, with horror elements. So horror can show up in unexpected places like we talked about before, like the flying monkeys from this 1939 fantasy classic. And they are terrifying, the flying monkeys.
Wizard of Oz.
Yes, correct. All right. All right. Question 6. In the movie Anaconda, a great creature feature as well, which actor in the cast asks, "You mean there are snakes out there this big?"
Wait,
All right, can we talk it out?
You can talk it out, absolutely.
Okay. So I'm thinking like if they're speaking to our comedy roots, it's Owen Wilson for sure, but they might be just talking about Ice Cube.
I think it's
I think it's Ice Cube.
I think it's Ice Cube too.
All right, let's go Ice Cube. 3 for 3.
It is Ice Cube. All right. Owen Wilson, I was like, he's in trouble.
I know. I was like, oh, go the other way.
Overanalyze.
Right.
Good call on talking it out. Good call.
I love the team effort. It's awesome. All right.
my lifeline, baby.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Going back to a classic 80s kind of sci-fi horror film in the movie Scanners from 1981, what kind of powers do the scanners possess in the film Scanners?
They can
It
read
could blow up your head. Yeah.
your
But
head.
is are you looking for the name, Muse?
I'm looking for the name, but I'll take it. There's
Okay.
actually 2 powers they possess, but if they can give me one, then that works. Because I just thought it was one, honestly.
We can use a lifeline, guys. We're halfway there, I think.
Yeah. You're set.
I mean,
you're
we want to
question-
go
Is it a
without
name?
lifelines.
Mine.
Is it a name that's specific to the film?
It's specific to the ability.
Wait,
Is it like telekinesis?
Yeah, I'll take it. Telekinesis.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yep.
So
And
we'll give
also
it to him.
telepathy, which I wasn't. I forgot that part, but telekinesis was actually what I was looking for.
David don't need no stinking lifelines.
All right.
8.
Question 8. What country is renowned horror director David Cronenberg from?
Canada.
Yes.
Canada.
All right. I love it. You guys are rocking it. All right. Question 9. All right. True or false? The director of Necromantic from 1987 has claimed he only made the film as a statement of rebellion against the West German film rating system.
We can talk this out, but I mean, I don't know for a fact, but I would say true on that.
I would say I have no clue.
I'm gonna go with David's hunch on this.
All right. Is that your guys' final answer?
Yeah.
It's actually true. According to the director, he wanted to shock as many people as possible, and he hasn't made a movie since. So that's pretty interesting. I've never seen it. I've heard it's pretty controversial. Definitely one of those ones I was like, I got to get myself psyched up to watch that one.
That was true. He said true, right? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You got that right? All right. So, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good job. 9 for 9 so far. You're on question 10.
All right. Okay, I'm going to give you a few things from a movie, and I'm going to ask you to tell me which movie I'm speaking of. Just like maybe like 3 items used in the movie that would kind of give you an idea of what film I'm speaking of. A kitchen knife, a jack-o'-lantern, and coveralls. I can give you the
Halloween.
Oh yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah, first instinct. It is Halloween. All right. I was like,
it seemed too easy. Like, wait a second.
Yeah.
I got to keep you guys on your toes. Like, yeah, I had a feeling that you guys were going to be like, wait a minute, it can be that obvious. Yeah, it is that obvious. All right. Question. I think we're in question 10.
11.
So yeah, I knew I was going to mess up there somewhere. In the film Paranormal Activity from 2007, what board game catches fire in the living room when no one's around? I guess you could say it's a board game. It is. They sell it as a board game.
The Ouija board. It's gotta be.
Yes.
That's it.
I was going to guess Operation, but I guess.
I was
The
waiting.
game of life.
Yeah, Game of Life. Yeah, that's the 2020 version of Paranormal Activity.
Yeah.
I was waiting for you guys to choose multiple choice on that one because I was like, I got Hungry Hippo here, Monopoly. Yeah. No, you guys nailed it though. All right. Question 12. Josh Hartnett plays Eben Olsen in what 2007 vampire film?
30 Days of Night.
Yes, and a great movie that is. Love
Yes.
Chris was the main vampire in that movie. I don't know if you guys knew that.
All right. So you guys did so well. So this is 13, right? So this is
we're at 2 points, so you guys can go 14 for 13, which I have a strong feeling you may.
So you guys have done so well. I thought I would throw you a tough one for this last question. And ask you, besides Robert Englund, who plays Freddy Krueger, who is the only other actor to appear in at least 3 A Nightmare on Elm Street films?
It's what's her name? Who's in the first one?
Oh yeah, Heather Langenkamp.
That is correct. You guys.
No, that's not that hard. Come on.
Johnny Depp, because he's technically in 2. He's actually in Freddy's Dead as well. So I was like hoping there might be a little bit of a confusion there. So yeah. So there you go. You guys are 14 for 13. I mean, you guys knocked out of the park.
Well done, you guys. Definitely worked well as a team. I love it, man. I love it when sometimes it doesn't work so well when there's more of you guys like, oh, well, what do you think? Well, what do you think? And you know, it's like, and it's always wrong, but well done. So this is the end of the show. I'd like to give each of you an opportunity to talk about what's in the pipeline for you. What are you working on, and where can we find you on social media? Jeff, we'll start with you first.
I have a real band called $500 with the dude, William Francis Horner, shout out buddy, who played drums for the band, for recording Duh. And we have a new record coming out on Friday. So, yeah, like a 7-inch. So you can actually get that 500bucks.com. It'll take you right to it.
Right on. And where can we find you on social media if you are on social media?
It's my Instagram is This Is Hell, I'm in Hell. There's
I love it. Right on. Matt, what about you, boss?
So I think probably the easiest place to kind of send just everyone is if you go to unclepeckerhead.com, or if you go to kind of our production hub, which is subtletyrex.com. No dashes, no spaces, just subtletyrex, or just unclepeckerhead.com, and they all take you to the same website. That'll tell you about future projects that we're hoping to make, maybe summer 2021, maybe not. It'll take you to all my personal social media, all of the film social media. But more importantly, which we're about to announce tomorrow, which will open up next week via pre-orders, is we are going to have a web store, which will have like all things merch and music and just like other just fun shit that we're doing under the kind of Uncle Peckerhead umbrella. For now, which hopefully will kind of expand from there. We're really hoping to make like a bunch of films within this universe and just make a bunch more movies with the same band of misfits. So you'll be able to find all of that on unclepeckerhead.com or subtletyrex.com.
And David, what about you, boss?
In the pipeline, I am the president of the $500 fan club. So the big thing in the pipeline is that $500 has a 7-inch coming out on Friday. So that's the most important thing in my world right now. And on social media, you can the only one I really do is Instagram. So I'm Dave Litt on Instagram, DAVELIT.
Well, listen, fellas, we loved the movie, as we said before. Everybody who's listening and watching the live stream, please check out Uncle Peckerhead. It's on video on demand right now, but well worth it. It's something that you're going to enjoy. It's funny, it's gory, and it's something that I think everybody can relate to. Shout out to Independence Hall out in Asbury Park, and you guys. We wish you nothing but success with the film, and we cannot wait to see what's in store for you next time. Thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I mean, we just want to say sincerely thanks to y'all for sitting down and talking with us, because honestly, like, this is like, we are doing this ourselves. Really, this is a DIY operation and really being embraced by fans of the genre and just people that are fans of film like y'all. It really means a lot that you would spend an hour with us. So we really wanted to thank you guys too. So thank you.
Yeah.
Our pleasure.
Appreciate
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Take care.